Okay, so good morning, everyone. So in Western Connecticut, we have been focused on backyard prevention and understanding risk for tick-associated diseases, specifically those associated primarily with black-legged ticks. So if you live in this region, you're probably familiar with uh, many of the common recommendations to prevent tick exposure in the residential landscape here in the Northeast. But CDC's tick prevention website has like a whole myriad of backyard strategies that they highlight to help keep homeowners safe. Either two of the major ones include creating a tick safe zone, using like landscape modification, and also, of course, applying pesticides to manage tick population. So when we think about this recommendation, mostly the application of pesticide recommendation refers to the broadcast application of tick killing pesticides. So traditional pesticides, particularly synthetic pyrethroids, have been pretty well studied, and despite being commonly recommended, we see that in Connecticut, where we have, of course, lots of ticks and we're highly endemic for Lyme and other black-legged tick-associated diseases, that only 21% of residents apply pesticide for tick control. And that's in contrast to some of the other measures that they will do, like more than 50% will treat their pets or perform tick checks. And so while they didn't measure why in that particular survey, in another survey of residents, 61% cited safety concerns as a main reason for not using pesticides. And so in addition to this like chemophobia, homeowner decision making when it comes to backyard tick control may be further, complicated by the fact that there's so many different products that are available to them, not just including like the pyrethroids like bifenthrin and cyfluthrin, but also there's the pyrethins. Some of you may be familiar with entomopathogenic fungi, rodent-targeted devices. Those are your bait boxes and your tick tubes, as well as natural products, which may contain botanical ingredients that are more increasingly flooding the market in our area. So in Sarah Niezebecki's TickNet survey, she also reported that 14% of Connecticut residents reported applying natural pesticides. And although we don't really know what they applied, we're not really surprised about this because we see in our area, we've been seeing an increase in a lot of these professional pest management companies offering natural tick control. And in some of these cases, it's the only type of thing that they offer. So over the past several years, we've surveyed the licensed pest management professionals in our state about their tick control practices. We found in our 2021 TickNet survey, we found that more than half of them reported offering both synthetic and natural pesticide options, and nearly 20% reported only offering natural options. And then in a separate survey, we saw that our respondents, there it is, reported, nearly a quarter of them reported applying a cedar oil or cedar oil based product as their primary tick control service. And so the increasing use of cedar oil based residential tick control has been a pretty great interest to us. We know they're offered, we know they're marketed as safe, which can be appealing to the homeowner. They're exempt, Tom alluded to this, from EPA registration as a minimum risk natural product. And unfortunately, right now, we don't have a lot of information to talk about their efficacy. So in the beginning of 2024, we launched our Connecticut version of the itch project. And for this study, we started out by just asking, do properties treated with a professionally applied cedar oil product have fewer ticks than untreated properties? And so we recruited properties early in the year. We ended up enrolling 46 and sampled them between May and July. We visited them each 3 times. Half of the properties were treated professionally by a commercial PCO company with a cedar oil-based product, and the other 23 had not been treated. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to show you all of the data, but I just wanted to point out some of the sort of the most important takeaways. So first, when we looked at the overall tick abundance, you'll see that the tick abundance was similar between our treated and untreated properties, and even though maybe slightly less at the cedar oil treated properties, we did not find a significant difference between them. And in fact, though, when we break down our findings by the products applied, you can see that there's, quite a bit of variation between them. And of course, our study was not really powered to evaluate the different products, but hence is what we ended up with because of the, many complications of recruiting and controlling all these variables. So but seeing this, we really just came away with more questions. Like, first, what do we know about these products? And Tom shared a little bit about these in his presentation. And actually, the only 2 of our products have been studied, and they were in Tom and Megan Dyer's study at URI. And they found that both the cedar side and the tick kills had very limited knockdown and residual control of black-legged tick nymphs. And neither product was significantly different from the water control. And there's no other published data for these other products, the Cedar Cure or the mosquito-free or tick-free products. So our first year of this study, was also limited by variation in the different application methods. So as you can see in this graph, the properties that were treated with cedar side had a significant amount of ticks, but you can also see that those were the only properties that were treated with a backpack sprayer, whereas the other products, the tick kills and the Cedar Cure, were applied using a high pressure truck mounted sprayer. And we know from a recent study just published by Scott Williams and Megan Linsky in Connecticut, they found that a high pressure application with synthetic pyrethroid worked better than low or medium pressure application with a backpack sprayer. So that could have also impacted our data. So this was just our dipping our toe into this topic because there's very little information out there in the real world about what people are doing and whether it's working. And so although this year was just our first step, obviously more study is needed. So we need to, of course, better understand the impact of the products used, the application methods, and the timing. And we're hoping in this next year we can sort of try to get into some of that. And also some of the human dimensions around using these minimum risk products, particularly cedar oil, the motivations for using them, and maybe how that might, and their perceptions and how that might be able to be impacted by our study findings. So returning back to this slide, I wanted to just spend the rest of this talk just really briefly showing you some of the other work that we've been up to. And so I'm just coming back to this slide because we were talking about pesticides, but there's also the part about understanding the landscape modification. So here's CDC's tick prevention websites, recommendations, and these are modifications one can make to make their yard less hospitable for ticks. And so at least these first 4 really talk about trying to mitigate ticks and hosts along the wooded edge. And that's because we know in the backyard landscape that most ticks are found in the forest and then in the area 3 meters from the forest, and that can include maintained lawn areas as well. And so naturally, this area is a focus of many of our recommended tick prevention measures. So of course, anyone studying backyard ticks knows that there are a lot of challenges, and in particularly, we have high meter by meter variation and patchiness in the distributions of ticks. And we also have the a high variability over time, and that's not just across or between years rather, but even within years and within seasons. So here's just an example of that. I know Bill brought up some of this as well with the interannual variation, but this is our data set. This is for 13 years. We sample weekly for nymphs from May to August, and you can see a lot of variability, not just year to year, but also week to week. And so this, of course, can impact our studies greatly. And sorry, so I don't know if Lars is on this call, and Tom, probably we all want to forget this data, but I wanted to bring this up as an example because we spent a lot of time not that long ago working on a backyard integrated tick management study in Connecticut and Rhode Island. And what I want to point out here is the years 1 and 2, which were our treatment years in both states, had very low tick densities. And so it made it very hard for us to be able to evaluate the impact of an intervention. And this was a 4-year, very not the cheapest study to run. And we really were disappointed because no matter how much planning you do and well-executed study design, sometimes you can't just deal with what the variation can just really monkey with your study. So I think maybe I'm a little bit jaded after 20 years of studying ticks in backyards and having these unexpected findings. And so I just wanted to add, because of this variation, we see some of these other issues, like we don't know how many ticks were there to start with, right? We can't control anything, as with many ecological studies. We can't put ticks in people's backyards to enrich them, right? Like that wouldn't be right. And so to conduct, powerful studies, robust studies, we need a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of labor. And of course, then we also have to count on being able to recruit the properties that meet our study criteria. So really quick, because I don't have a lot of time, I just wanted to introduce you to an approach we've been taking now. And Sandra, my student, will be talking more about this later. We wanted to know if we could simulate the backyard edge using enclosures. So obviously you heard from Tom, the use of enclosures or arenas they're not new. This is something that's been doing, I think Nell is using them as well, but mostly they're erected in a forested leaf litter kind of area. And so we wondered if we could sort of simulate the actual edge, that high risk area in backyards, then we'd be able to better study, the dynamics of tick activity at this location, either with or without interventions. And maybe ideally, can we also start to understand the human tick encounter risk if we were able to control more of the variables. And so I just wanted to tell you about last year, we started this tick garden project. And in this project, we tried different designs of enclosures. The one on the left is a modified crop cage with a wire mesh top. And it was only 4x8. And then we also used a 1x16. These are in feet, sorry. Sort of shorter track. We called it a race track. And we had infested them, and we're able to track ticks that were marked, either moving from the forest into the lawn and vice versa. We could track their survival and their behavior as well. So we basically wanted to know, are we getting the ticks? Are we able to see them moving in this environment? In our first tick garden design, we could see that ticks were moving into the forest from the lawn, but less so than ticks moving from the lawn. Sorry, I said that the wrong way. Ticks were moving from the forest into the lawn less frequently than they move from the lawn into the forest, but we actually saw that they weren't going very they were kind of stopped at the end, maybe because it wasn't long enough. So in our second one, our second iteration, we actually made a longer track so we could see them go. And what we found was that, yeah, they don't go that far. They usually go about a meter from where they were deposited, which we kind of know from the literature anyway. But we wanted to know, will these ticks move in our enclosures? Yes. Will they survive? Yes. Can we mark and recapture them? Yes. Can we recover them in a reasonable way, like the amount of them? And yes, the answer is yes. So can we simulate it? We think yes. So the ticks, anyway, we were able to monitor the microclimate too. Sorry. So anyway, basically we've now that we know that they work and we can use them, we are using them to better understand our vegetation management questions. And we're starting with the recommendation in the fourth bullet here, which is mow the lawn frequently. So what does that mean? How frequently? Nobody knows. So and so this mowing issue is of greater interest to us lately because, and I don't know if you have this in your area, but we have a lot of people who are very interested in either being part of a pollinator pathway, which may include NOMO May, and just people are being part of NOMO May anyway to try and promote pollinator health, increase biodiversity. And so we don't know what impact this will have on our tick populations. And so we are able to study that. So I don't want to tell you what we found because you can wait for Sandra's lightning talk this afternoon. So thanks to everybody. It takes a huge team of people to make things work. So